Alright, welcome to Gamma World Introduction Part 4. And I'm going to show you guys how to manipulate, modify, and move tokens around on the battle map. And how to draw cards and move them around. So just a few more Roll20 things that you guys need to become familiar with in order to play this awesome game. The first thing is moving around the battle map. So as you can see, the brain has been joined by his friend Clay. Let's see, Clay, he's a seismic giant. And he wants to move around and say it's his turn, it's his initiative. Now you can click and drag these around just like we normally do with Cthulhu and stuff like that. But what's really handy is, you're going to have a move speed. Most characters are going to have a move speed of 6. So you can move 6 squares in up to 6 squares in your turn. And I find that using the arrow keys on your keyboard work best. That way you can just kind of count them out, Like Clay wants to move 6, he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the arrow keys are a good way to move. You can also click and drag them. Make sure that you've got your square picked out or whatever. Because once things start moving around the board, we want to keep track of them. So I would suggest using your arrow keys for movement. A little bit about the tokens and the bubbles that would show above their heads there. We used to use these in Call of Cthulhu. I think we still do. But the green, the middle one, is going to be your hit points. The red bubble is going to be your armor class. And the blue bubble is going to be your passive perception. And I'll explain a little bit about that. Hit points are pretty obvious. It's how much damage you can take. Armor class is kind of reversed. You remember those old negative armor classes and how great they were in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? Well, no more. The higher your armor class, the better. It's basically the number that an enemy needs to roll to hit on a d20. So they need to get a 19 or better to hit you with a physical attack. Passive perception just kind of, it was an indication of how perceptive you are of your surroundings. And I'll explain more about that later. Now you can edit these as well in the bubbles, like hit points. Say you take 5 hit points, you can just take them right out of the bubble here. So say Clay takes 5 hit points. So that would put him at 28. I just hit 28, and then you always have to hit enter, and that changes it both on his token, as you can see, the little bar above their heads that show hit points as well. You can see the bar has decreased a little bit, so that will change it on the token, and it also should be reflected in the character sheet as well. So it automatically changes it on the character sheet, so you can change your hit points from the character sheet or from your token. It's just a quick and easy way of doing it. Let's give him his full hit points back. Cards. Okay, there's going to be some card decks in this game. On the right hand side of your screen, if the decks are showing, they'll show up over here. If you hover over it, it'll show you what deck it is. Omega Tech cards are always going to be the orange colored cards. Alpha Mutation cards are always going to be the green colored cards. So when you hover over them, you'll see some options here that only the GM has. But in order to draw a card, you can see when you hover over it, the top card kind of pops out of the top there a little bit. You can click that and you can drag it out onto the table. Okay. Or you can just click it once and it'll draw it to the top of the deck. Okay. And you can then click it and it'll kind of give you a zoomed in view of it. But I think for the most part, we're just going to be dragging them out onto the table so everybody can see them when you draw them. Looks like old Clay drew it's an Area 52 tech, it's a sky cycle, it's a flying motorcycle, quote unquote. Beware of power lines, it says. So this will be a nice thing to have. It's got 50 hit points, armor class 18, flies 20 squares. It says a driver occupies the front square of the sky cycle space and must have one hand free to move it. It can carry 2 medium creatures and 200 pounds of gear. That's very nice. Now the thing about these tech cards is you'll have them for the duration of one encounter, essentially. Once the encounter is over, at the end of every encounter, everybody has to roll a charge check for any Omega Tech items that they're carrying to see if a charge has run out or if it's just not functioning anymore. And basically that's a D20 roll. On a 10 or higher, it maintains its charge. You can keep using it. On a 9 or lower on the charge check, it runs out of juice, or it's just no longer functional and basically becomes junk. Now there's an exception to that. Some of these Omega Tech cards will have a salvage section at the bottom. It will have salvage in a number. That number indicates what level you have to be to make a salvage check on it. The salvage check is the same. It's a D20 roll. So if you're a level 6 guy and your Sky Cycle runs out of charge, you can see if you can fix it up or find some alternate source of power or just kind of jury rig it to keep it going. But a lot of times they'll have a lesser effect, or they'll be less effective in whatever they do. So in order to make a salvage roll for this, if this runs out of charge, you have to be a 6th level character, can salvage the Sky Cycle. It becomes a special item as above. So not much changes with it if you get to keep it. So that's pretty awesome. So when you get a card, you're going to take it. Okay. In order to take a card, you will right-click on the card, and you'll click Take Card. Now you'll see above your character, your little avatar down here in Roll20, you'll see a little card appearing above your head here. If you click on that card, it will show you the cards that you have in your hand. And you can just click on them, zoom in them to see what you have. Okay. You can sort these by deck. You'll have like an Omega Area 52 section, there's Omega Tech. You'll have Alpha Mutation sections and stuff below. Or you can just look at all of them. I would just kind of keep them all. So, like for instance, you know, you may wind up with some conditions in the game as well. Like condition cards, like Immobilized. I may use these during combat. These are a little big. You would also take that. You'll see you'll have condition cards in your hand as well. Sometimes to get rid of them, to take them out of your hand, you'll just click them, drag them out into the table, select them, and either right click and delete them, or I usually just hit delete or backspace once they're selected, and they'll go back into the discard pile. So that's how cards work. Let's just do one more just to kind of see here. Let's say Clay is going to draw from the Alpha Bio deck here. Alpha Mutation, it's a Bio mutation. Let's see what he gets. So I'm just going to deal it to him. I'm just going to go to the brain, my icon, but I'm going to deal one card to Sean S. See what he gets here. Clay drew Fire Wings. It's a Bio mutation. Fire, keyword fire. You sprout wings of fire. You manifest fire wings and gain a fly speed of 8. In addition, once while this card is readied, you can shift 4 squares as a standard action and make a basic melee attack against each different creature you move adjacent to during the shift. Each attack deals 1d6 extra fire damage. That's a nice one-off there. With alpha mutations, you can always attempt to overcharge them. And it will tell you when you can overcharge them. This one says when you start your turn, you can roll a d20 to overcharge. From 10 or higher, you can shift 8 squares instead of 4. If you fail that overcharge roll, something always bad is going to happen here. You fall prone instead of shifting. Alpha cards are kind of the same as Omega cards, where they're encounter based. So once an encounter is over, you will discard any. The difference is that Omega Tech cards get a charge roll. If you succeed in the charge roll, you get to keep it. Alpha mutations will always go away after the encounter, and you'll draw new ones. So they're always changing. So I think that's it for now.